Welcome to the Tech Savvy Professor podcast, which features two faculty who love tech and love making it a part of their work. I'm Marty Join, Associate Professor at Kent State University, and my field is counseling, and I'm joined again by my co-host, Eric Perry.
Yeah, hi everyone. Glad to be back. My name is Eric Perry. I'm the program director at Divine Mercy University in our counseling program, also a counselor educator and administrator, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you remind me every time you do your introduction, I guess I should say program coordinator of the counseling program at Kent State University, but I try to forget that part of my life when I come here, just to enjoy the time talking about tech. And it's been, I think, 4 months since we've done a show, and I'm glad we have found the time to kind of start this up. And I guess we're shooting for regular Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to be streaming live on YouTube and I'll give you the details on where you can find us on YouTube at the end of the show. So, Eric, what's been going on with you? I mean, I'm not asking for excuses because I've got my own piece of crazy that's been going on that's kept us from doing 4 months for a show. But what's going on with you?
I'll blame children for the most part. I think it's taken up a lot of time. Also, we've been kind of growing and expanding and doing some hiring and things, and actually leads into what I'm going to talk about and maybe complain about a little in terms of tech. But schedules have just been a little crazy. Like you said, I could garner the whole list of excuses for you, but I think it's our busy season. I'm actually kind of excited that things are going to start to slow down into summer, and we can hopefully keep up our regular cadence of talking tech.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy with me too, and my list of excuses is centered around having to wrestle with the first time trying to be able to manage enrollment. That's new for me because I just took this position on last fall, and now we're doing, we did an application for the following fall and trying to get everything aligned and, making decisions on February 1st and have people applying on February 5th and wondering why they can't be in our program in the fall. So it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of work. And frankly, I'm pretty exhausted. And then trying to find a spot because we want to find a spot in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, instead of in the late evenings because family commitments and other commitments that we do. Trying to find one that we could line up with has been a bit of the challenge. And it's been good that we've been able to find it here and at this time. So hopefully we'll start off on a more regular basis. Things have slowed down for me too. I mean, now that I've gotten all the enrollments done for the fall, summer's coming up, all those courses are taken care of and assignments are done with that. It gives me a little more space to be able to do this and do it on a regular basis, particularly during the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. So let's make some connecting questions and conversation. And so I'm going to ask you, has there been a tech tool or workflow that you've learned about in the last few months that has been really helpful for you?
Yeah, I'm thinking about like where you have all the virtual windows that you could like modify with your hands. I think like the Iron Man scene or whatever, where he's like pulling things up in augmented reality, trying to organize his thoughts. We've had a lot of hiring happening. So part of what I've been trying to do is get our processes together and try and find a better way to manage that flow. Applicants have anywhere from 4 to 5 interviews, plus there's coordination that happens with the faculty interviews, the meetings. So I've kind of been trying to link up using text blaze, Google Calendar, and doodle polls in a way that I have things kind of almost set up and ready to fire out as things get done. So that's been really useful. Some frustrations around using Doodle and Google Calendar and trying to get that to link with my Zoom account. But I think now that we have an outline for this process, it's running a lot more smoothly than it did last year, which has been really helpful. I like Doodle, and I know some folks are like, but when you pay for the subscription, there's a lot more I think that you can do in terms of scheduling. That I've gotten some of the faculty on board now with using it to help us schedule those interviews, and I think we're going to start using it in admissions even to help send out invites to students so they can select their own times for when they want to come in and do the group interview portion of our admissions process. So I think it's been helpful. What I really need to do and what I'm really looking forward to doing is having something other than a Google Doc to kind of outline the step by steps. We use Monday.com, like a project management software.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of helpful, but it's also a little clunky and a lot of investment time wise. So I'm in the market for something to help manage that better.
Yeah, I use Zoho a bit with projects. The problem is I want to use it because it's a nice central place. It also allows some ease of information back and forth because it is a central place. And I'll tinker with a new piece of technology and enjoy it, or at least fascinated by how it works. But I can't say that's true for everybody that I invite onto the project. And it's and I don't want to get into the habit of having to spend all my time teaching people how to use tech, particularly when the goal is to do the project. So, but part of the problem is trying to meet at the least common denominator means you're not going to satisfy myself or in a lot of ways anybody else when you're just sending emails back and forth with attachments. It just does not work in terms of consistency with the project. I have to say, I don't think I've been using reminders a lot, Apple reminders in terms of workflow. The problem is I need to look at them more often to remind me of all this stuff. But for me, it's things cross my mind like, oh, I gotta get a hold of this guy because we have to have a meeting in the next 2 days. And that'll cross my mind while I'm driving home, and then by the time I get home, I forget it. So being able to use the S Lady to call on a reminder to be able to remind me to do something later in the day has been helpful. But it's not a way to organize workflow. And there are some apps that will actually take your reminders, combine them with your calendar, and stick your work in for you. And I don't like that loss of freedom. It makes me feel like a machine instead of this is what I have to do next and I have to get it done in this amount of time. It just doesn't feel like I'm ready to give that up. So my workflow's been a challenge. I think I've gotten better by using reminders and going back to them instead of trying to keep it all in my head. Or, as somebody said in a meeting this morning, you just pin that email. Well, when you have 90 emails pinned to the top of your Outlook, it loses purpose in terms of getting stuff done. And there's the getting things done, the GTD, zero inbox sort of concept that would be attractive to play with, but that's been the workflow thing has been a challenge for me and continues to be a challenge, and some personal guilt about that. And I don't want to live my work life like that, feeling guilty, because that's no fun. So kind of shaking loose of that is the other part of the workflow, is kind of letting go. So
Mhm. Yeah,
I've
there's a
been
balance
playing.
there.
Yep. Yeah.
Hmm.
I've been playing with some new tech. Has nothing to do with my teaching, could be, but I'm doing another podcast with my son, Will, and it's called Gear Up and Go. And it's about travel tech that you want to take when you travel. And his life is busy right now with a lot of things, and he's also doing some traveling. I did some traveling with ACA and other conferences coming up. So it's wound up that either one of us is driving each other to the airport. So he drove me to the airport, and that story's documented in one of the shows that we did. And on the way to the airport, he says, "Hey, we just ought to record the show in the car." And I'm like, "Well, okay." And so I was away for a week. It was at ACA, and when I got to ACA, I got on Amazon and ordered some lapel microphones and a whole system that plugs into the phone so you could record video and audio. And I've been playing around with those, particularly because you know how I am, Eric. Somebody said to me, "You can't do that. There's going to be too much road noise." And it's like, "Oh yeah,
Challenge accepted. Yeah.
yeah." Challenge accepted. And the person had, I mean, a very reputable podcaster, had done some shows on the road. I mean, he did one show that was his daily drive. And,
Mhm.
so when he said that to me, I was like, "Oh, but wait a minute, you did it for a while. How did you manage that?" I didn't ask him because sort of trade secrets. So I got these DJI, and DJI is known for making gimbals. They're known for making drones.
Mhm.
And they had these lapel microphones that kind of hooked into a set. And I saw this being used by some international teachers who came here and wanted to record their presentations. So I'm like, okay, if I can get a good recording, even if there's road noise, I can see what I can do in post to process it. And it worked really well. And you can see the difference by looking at the video where there is no post processing of audio and listening to the sound versus listening to the podcast where it has been post processed and a lot of the road noise is out of it. So not just stopping there, somebody told me about Rode. Rode has these Gen 3 wireless, and Rodes are really good microphones and setups. So I got a set of those. And so far, Will and I have done 3 trips to the airport and done 3 shows using different microphones. And so that's a tech I'm playing around with. I don't know, I guess I could use it for recording lectures if I wanted to do that, or recording video with lecture. But this is basically a 2 shot coming off my phone, the two of us sitting in the front seat of the car and then doing what we're doing for the show. So that's kind of new tech that I've been playing with, and particularly the audio editing of that stuff has been kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't played around with a whole lot. I really got stuck on the Plod pen.
Yeah,
Um, I
good
was
or
trying to
bad
use
stuck.
what's that?
Good or bad stuck.
Well, I think for a while I was finding it useful. Um, I wanted to use it initially to record meetings, particularly those that didn't have, process oriented type meetings where we were working on, developing new course
Hmm.
content or modifying courses or talking course sequence, those types of things. And I think it did okay, just okay. Where it struggles is understanding and picking up words from different voices. It will try to assign those voices, and it does a fairly good job of that. But it misses just enough to make it a real pain to pour through the transcription.
Hmm.
I think what was most useful about it was having the summaries.
Yeah.
tended to capture most of the good stuff. Wasn't a huge investment. And then I tried it for a little while. I've been working on a couple of writing projects. It's something I haven't been able to get into in a while. So, I have those errant thoughts, like something that sounds like a really good idea, and I keep it in my pocket. It's tiny. So I don't know if you can see it here, but it's really easy to carry around, and they actually make a wrist accessory that you can keep it on your wrist. And I just hit the record button, and I'd record whatever those thoughts were around what I should be writing, or even kind of transcribing what I would want to put on paper. And again, did well, but would be just far enough off from what I was trying to say. And some of this is my own fault, right? I realized that sometimes I mumble, sometimes I don't enunciate well enough. So it kind of created this, now I need to work on, am I speaking clearly, even when I'm speaking into it? So I've gotten better with it, but I think I've wasted more time with it than I've actually saved using it. But it's been really neat to play around with. But if I had to categorize it somewhere, I think, again, probably wasted more time with it than I gained by using it. I probably should have just sat down and wrote what I was thinking, but there were times where I couldn't. And I think that was when it was really helpful. I'm outside cleaning the garage or whatever, and I just hit the button. And I do think I got some good content out of it that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah.
The app is really easy to use too.
Yeah. Have you run any of the transcriptions through, like, in ChatGPT or anything to augment what you've been doing?
Once, yeah, I took a transcript and said, hey, can you look through this and fix it for grammar, try to clean it up, essentially. I've also had it do its own, I've had ChatGPT do its own summary from the full transcription and compared that to the Plod one.
Yeah.
Generally, ChatGPT's was a little better.
Yeah.
So I'm adding a step doing that. And my hope was to use just the Plod itself, because you pay for that too.
Right.
But ChatGPT definitely does a better summary, and you can give it more prompts. Like, I want a summary of this exclusively, or I want step by step based on what we talked about in the transcript. And ChatGPT can respond better to that.
Yeah, when I was at ACA, I sat in on a couple of board meetings, and I asked if I could use the device, because we're sitting around a table. Basically, there were 6 of us sitting around a table. And I said, it's going to record it. It's going to give me some transcription of it. I'll send it to whoever's responsible for the note keeping here. I just would like to try this. And, asked if it would be willing to, if I asked the group if they'd be willing to let me do that, and they said, yeah. But they also had an agenda, and a really well-documented agenda. So I took the transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and then put the agenda in with it. And it gave me much better results, because it organized, it knew what people were talking about and what people were going to talk about next. So you can supplement those kinds of documents. You can't do it on the Plod app, to my knowledge, but you can, and supposedly Plod uses ChatGPT 4.0, and also Claude, I think, is in doing some of the work that it does. But yeah, being able to supplement a framework for it and say, okay, you've just heard people talking about this, now put it and conceptualize it within the framework, and it works much better that way in terms of getting summaries out and getting information out. So, I don't know. Do you have any questions you want to toss out?
I don't know. I was thinking more about, I kind of want to go shopping, right? Like, I'm thinking about, like, what is my next thing to buy? And, you were talking about traveling and travel tech. I have a couple of trips planned for this year. My son's going on his 6th grade honors field trip to Wallops Island, Virginia, the NASA facility there. It's a lot of fun. They do a lot of science experiments. I'm thinking about, well, what might be useful to help with that? To go to graduation, a couple of residencies over the summer, um, family trip, Canada trip, fishing. So I'm doing a lot of travel over the summer. So I don't know if there was anything you ran into that you felt like would be useful for us to take a look at.
It's tough to say. Of course, we've talked before on this show about second monitors, and it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to have the ability or availability to work, or what is the purpose for taking the tech with you? I can tell you something that you should get. It'll only cost you $3,500, and it's perfect for travel. An Apple Vision Pro, and it will come in handy on family trips, particularly when you want to get away from your family for a little bit. Um, and out of the question, maybe it's not, is, a Meta. You can get a Meta SE for $300, and you have a gaming device there and a form of entertainment. And if you're flying, you can also use that on a plane to be able to kind of do whatever you want to do with, to get out of the plane environment. Other things that I've been playing with this summer and that we'll be talking about or have talked about on travel is basically things like travel apps and like Packer and Pack R, I guess is the way, and apps that you use for organizing trips, because that's always the problem with me is I'm trying to remember everything that I need to take. And again, I remember it when I don't need to pack it, but when I need to pack it, I forget about it. So some systems set up so you have, and the good thing about travel apps is that once you set up the kinds of things that you'll take, the next time you take a trip, you don't have to remember the different things you have to take because it's already in that app for you to be able to use. So that would be a suggestion I've had. I can't say, again, it really depends on, are you traveling by car? Are you flying? What's the purpose of your trip? Do you want to work? Are you trying to find ways that are helpful, that are more about entertainment and enjoying that? Is going to depend on what device you take. So yeah, that's my best answer for you. I haven't found anything particularly new. There are these things that are helpful for planes if you're not gonna, or any scenario. Will has been doing some side work with a friend of his who does stage construction in Vegas. So he goes out to Vegas a couple of times, and what he's noticed is the sound and the amount of noise that his watch kept telling him. There's a lot of noise. There are these things called loop earbuds, and they have dials in them that go that basically impact the level of transparency. So, they also work on planes for the purpose of cutting noise out. But you can have full transparency or you can dial it down to no transparency. And for people who are attending concerts and things like that, particularly folks who are working on stage with concerts, these earbuds, Loop, Loop, you can find them on Amazon, are particularly good in buffering the sound that they have to be subjected to on stage. Or if you're like an old man that goes to a conference or goes to a concert, I don't need the band to be strikingly loud. I can just tile them down a little bit to where I can actually understand stuff. It's pretty cool. There's no electronics to it. It's all seems to be mechanical in terms of it, but they're good, a good potential travel thing. I gave some to my son. Well, I gave some to my wife, who forgot to give them to my son, and then when he came back, he told me he never got to use them. So we're going to make sure he gets a pair if he goes out and does some more work like that.
I can think of a couple of uses at home for those.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. I do get in trouble from time to time.
Well,
Um,
I have when we take trips to Chicago, often my daughter, who's a vocal performer, so she sings full on opera, sits in the front seat to my right, and my wife sits in the back, and she turns around to talk to my wife, and I get it full blast in my ear on the right. And I have bad enough tinnitus already. And so there's part of me that's like, yeah, I just want to stick one in the right ear and tune it down a little bit because I know I'm going to get conversation blasted from the right. Again, there's a rudeness factor with that, but
I
I,
guess, yeah,
but
yeah. Maybe a
still,
social convention that prevents some of that, but yeah,
who knows about social conventions? Nice thing about getting older is you get less worried about social conventions. It's like I want to be happy. I don't care what you think about it. I
it's
have
one of my
two.
favorite.
Yeah,
It's one of my favorite lines from a show. I won't mention the show on air, but if you want to look it up, I'm sure you'll find it. It's I don't care that you're booing me. I know what you cheer for.
yeah.
It's become kind of my favorite saying at this point. Yeah, I don't care that you boo me. I know what you cheer for.
Two new pieces of equipment that I've gotten. Pretty serious pieces of equipment is the Mac Mini M4. And I was running all of my production through it. And then I wasn't going to upgrade my studio, and the new studios came out, the Studio Max.
Mm.
And I got such a good trade in value on my studio from 2 years ago that I went ahead and upgraded to the new studio with the M chips in it, the M4 chips in it. And I have had trouble figuring out which machine to work on, and I do have a switcher that I haven't put together yet where I can easily switch from one to the other, and it takes everything off. Well, it shifts all of all of what's the outputs from one to the outputs to the other. But for the last couple of months, I've been doing all the production for the video production for the podcasts and also all of my work on it and the audio production. And I'll have three monitors and I'll have audio, Adobe Audition running the audio portion and trying to get that cleaned up. And then I have Premiere running the video portion of it. So it's doing a lot of work on the Mini and it gets hot. Okay, it gets hot. That's what computers do. And now I just like in the last week, I switched over to run it on the Studio Mac, and it's running a lot cooler. So I think I'm going to stick with the Studio for a while, but perfectly capable of doing what you're doing if you're looking at a new sort of independent hockey puck size computer. The Apple Mac Mini is really a good little machine to do all the stuff you need. So I've gotten both of those and gotten adjusted to using them. So
I want to take a second to bash the Ozbot Tiny. So I have
okay,
the Light 2 version. I bought one. The features are great. The interface is great. The camera, you can move and adjust it provided the gimbal doesn't break. So the first one I had, the gimbal broke. I returned it, no big deal. They shipped me another one. It was fantastic. And about 3 weeks later, the same thing happened.
yeah,
So I don't know, two in a row seems a little suspicious. I love the quality. Um, I've been really struggling with it. So now I'm in the market for yet another webcam. I wanted something with hand gestures, AI features, that kind of thing. And we talked about a few on here before. Just haven't had really good luck with
yeah.
this one in particular. So I think I'm going to go back and get one of the other models that we talked about.
Yeah, I can tell you, and I want to make sure that I get the exact name right because they're always coming out with new stuff. So I'm looking at what I purchased. Yeah. I purchased it in November. The Insta360 Link 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 4K webcam. It has half inch sensor, AI tracking, HDR, AI noise cancellation, if you're going to use that as a mic, gesture control for streaming, video calls, gaming, works with Zoom, Teams, Twitch, and more. And I'll put a link, I'll put an Amazon link in the show notes to it. I had a previous version of a Osbot, and let me see if I can. And I wound up giving it to my son um, to do our show. Well, there's the Logitech Brio,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure about its ability to kind of do that. But let me see, Osbot. Yeah, I also purchased an Osbot Tiny 2 Lite 4K webcam. That went to Will. The differences, I think, in terms of, I like this in terms of clarity better. So yeah, there are some other Osbots that run a lot more expensive, but I'm happy with this. This was suggested by two guys of Mac Voices show that I'm on that they had used, and I think I even had a previous version of the Instalink at one point, and they saw the upgrade coming, so I went ahead and upgraded with it. The problem that I have with camcorders, and then maybe we'll wrap it up after this. The problem that I have is getting the video centered. So if this thing sits up on the top of my monitor, I'm always it's always looking down at me.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that somebody was selling, and I tried it, was a actual magnet that sits on your camera and then attaches directly to your screen, your monitor.
That's
And
scary.
I was like, well, it doesn't work on a Mac Studio monitor because it's too thick.
Mm.
And they even give an extra magnet to put on the other side of the monitor in case it doesn't attach to the monitor. Well, it does work like on laptop monitors fine.
Mm.
So this was a device. I forget who created it. It might have been something I saw on like a Kickstarter, and tried it and was disappointed it didn't work on the thicker monitors. I couldn't see how it would anyways. But it does work on thinner monitors. But I'm doing all my video from the monitor that I'm looking at right now. So there was another device that you could do, and it's PlexCam. And it is a Pro V2 webcam mount. And what it is, I know why it's called PlexCam, because it's plexiglass.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing just, is a ladder where you kind of set your camera where you want it in the field of vision. And it's right in the middle of the monitor. And so when I'm doing something like this and a message comes up as I'm trying to set up Ecamm, it comes up right in the middle of the monitor and the camera's blocking the message. And I have to kind of divide this screen into one half. I've got the video on one side and I've got the show notes on the other. And I really wanted to be able to kind of, when I'm using the show notes, still be looking directly in the camera. So it has its limitations, but it's better than sitting up on top of my monitor and looking down at me. There's not much I can do to control the angle or the face-on look that I get when I'm using this Plex cam. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's frighteningly expensive for a piece of plexiglass. Come on, it's $95 for just a L-shaped plexiglass that you put your camera on.
I was looking at it and wondering, I wonder if we could 3D print something.
I
I
don't
may make
know.
that a project for my son and I to see if we can 3D print something just to give it a try. I don't love that it's in the way. And I
Yeah.
know there's an eye contact camera pro. I've seen those. It
Hmm.
actually drops the camera down, like it's
Oh,
the camera itself toward the middle of the screen, and then gives you some guidance around so that you look like you're making direct eye contact.
yeah. Yeah.
But it's still an arm that drops down into the center of your screen. So either way, it gets in the way.
So, are there any trends or tools or things that you think you might would be good for um, upcoming episodes?
I don't know. I had a couple of ideas I was thinking around, but is there anything on your list high up there?
I would kind of, and it goes. I mean, it's more than just get a good calendar, but it's sort of project management kinds of things. And that's true for you and true for me, but it's sort of when everything's coming at you, and this is happening a lot in higher education, everybody is getting burnt out from it. Um, most of my fall was sitting in meetings so we could give feedback literally every week, sitting in meetings. So we could give free feedback so the provost could make a decision. What is the new configuration of the college is going to be at the university, which will save us 1 million out of the 8, but nobody talks about the other 7 that we have to kind of figure out. But we spent a whole semester in meetings figuring that out,
Mm-hmm.
and getting, every decision that's a compromise, you've got both people satisfied and nothing helpful out of it because you've just satisfied people. You haven't made strategic decisions about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're living in a lot of chaos in higher ed right now. And part of the chaos is the demands that are on people's schedules. So, some way of managing that, I think project management software is one way to go. And there's a couple that we can talk about. I know I can talk about. But to me, it's a little more granular. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more of my project managing my workflow. So, need to think about that. That would
Yeah,
be
I mean
something I'd toss out. Yeah.
that's high on the list for me,
Okay.
selfishly, just because I'm still trying to work through a lot of that, and I think
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of hopping between systems, and I'd like to find a way to do that better.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good one to talk about. I also, kind of want to start looking at maybe it's time to upgrade to a new Windows device. So I'm going to start looking around a little bit.
Okay.
Um, I have an i7 Alienware laptop that works fine now, um, but I think it's time. It's getting close to time.
But you're running an i7 Alienware and you're feeling the need to, what's compelling you to need to do something new?
That's not a fair question.
Okay.
Kind of because I want to.
Okay. That's a fair question. That's a fair answer because you want to.
Yeah. I want to see what's out there. I haven't explored much, and generally, I try. I told myself I'm going to upgrade every 2 years, so I got another 6 months, and I want to start
Yeah.
doing my research.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're thinking about that in terms of your refreshed cycle,
Mhm.
and looking at stuff. I have felt a void of getting something new at this point. And even last night, I was working on some things, and you know what happened at 11 p.m. Eastern time last night? Do you know?
Did you make a purchase?
No, it was the Switch 2 came out,
Oh
and
yeah,
And
Yeah.
I had everything ready to go on one screen, and it was like, I can't justify this. I just can't. It's just, this is because I want new technology that I won't use. And there might be other things coming up in the future. There's some things I'm going to be doing this summer that's going to cost me some money that are not necessarily tech related, but branding and promo related stuff. And so I just, 11 o'clock passed and I just ignored it. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not something I felt really compelled to other than I wanted a new toy. And then I got up this morning and said, oh, what the hell? And went on, and sure, they're all sold out at this point, or at least what I
Yeah,
could
I
find.
imagine they
So,
would be.
so what's good is good. I'll find some other purpose for that kind of satisfaction. So let's talk about maybe new machines, but talk about project management and also talk about individual workflow management and things that we found useful for that. So that's what folks can look forward to. We haven't talked about AI. We might have in previous shows, but
Mhm.
I'm seeing that really getting much bigger in terms of people's use for it for productivity. And I've got some presentations coming up this summer, and have done a presentation at ACA on productivity and AI. And so that might be something to check in on with all of the AI situations changing regularly. So
Yeah, yeah. Prompting has been something that people ask me about regularly. I have a couple of friends that I've introduced AI to rather recently, and it's
yeah,
kind of fun to see them explore it. But they want to know more about how to prompt
yeah,
properly, how to ask the right questions and get the right answers.
yeah. There's a whole thing that I do on prompt engineering, and then there's a whole thing that I now do on how to create your own prompt engineer for the projects that you're going to do, and that you're going to essentially need the same thing. Like, I want to develop a workshop. Well, create a prompt engineer to walk you through. So, a prompt engineer that will create a prompt engineer essentially
Yeah,
for you. So, there's some stuff we can talk about that. That's part of the training I'm doing with groups this summer. And also, in Mac groups that I'm in and that they ask me to speak in. So, well, that's a wrap, I think, for the show.
yeah,
It's good to be back together. It's good to kind of just be conversational with feeling like we have to rattle off a bunch of stuff. Look for us on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, and all podcast servers. Our bumper music is from Philip Gross, Rast, from the Free Music Archive. And everything you need to know is at thepodtalk.net. And if you want to find us on YouTube, we're going to try and do this on Thursday afternoons at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can watch the live stream or come back later and watch the video or download the podcast from YouTube. You can find us at youtube.com/@symbol Tech Savvy Professor, all one long word. And that'll get you to our channel page where you can find out all that kind of information and past shows if you want to listen in on some of those. I mentioned to somebody last night that we were starting this up, and somebody said, "Oh, good," because that's one of the shows I like to listen to. In terms of, and I was like, "Oh wow, you touched my heart. I hope you're not gaslighting me,
yeah.
but you touched my heart." You can look for other shows like Circular Firing Squad. Eric's on that. That is live streamed Sunday nights at 7:30 every other Sunday. And I think we've got one coming up this Sunday, if at all possible. And also the show that I do, Vision Profiles, which is about spatial computing. All of that you can find at thepodtalk.net. That's it for this episode. Thanks for subscribing to the Tech Savvy Professor.